with our special co-host today, Ryan Aguas. Ryan, I'm glad to have you back on. We enjoyed that last conversation we had on Rainstorm Radio about student loans and stuff. And thanks again for being here today.
I'm glad to be back, and I'm very glad to introduce our special guest today, Derek Van Ness. Derek has worked with the Rainstorm Group for over 5 years, and he's an expert in research and development tax credits. He's also the author of Tax Strategies Your CPA Isn't Telling You out of Big Life Financial. So, welcome, Derek. We're glad to have you on our show. We know we've referred you clients in the past, and it's worked very well.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it and excited to be here with you guys.
It's interesting, Derek, before I go to the first question, to give you I've been hearing this word R&D a lot. In the last year in different podcasts, people have brought it up, but not gone into quite the detail. And it's very, very intriguing because I know what it stands for, but we're going to really educate our listeners and viewers today. So what are R&D credits?
Yeah, so the R&D stands for research and development, right? And these are credits, they're totally unrelated to like the COVID credits and all that. I know that got confusing for people. These have been around since the 1980s. And where they really came from was the automotive industry in the US, what had dominated the car world for a long time from the 50s to the 80s. And then all of a sudden, all these foreign cars start coming in. And the American automakers were having a hard time competing. So Congress got together and said, hey, how do we help American companies to innovate and improve and compete? And so they said, well, let's give them tax credits so that they'll try new things and the risk will be mitigated, right? So really what it came down to was Congress decided they wanted business owners to start to try new things and continue to innovate with technology. And so they developed this tax credit. Now, the credits have been around since 1981. They've changed several times over the years because at first it was for Chrysler and GM and Ford, right? These huge companies. And they realized about 15 years into this that small business owners can't keep the kind of records and the kind of things, the detail that those big companies can. But we want small businesses, because that's where a lot of innovation comes from. We want them to be able to claim these credits too. So they made some modifications. They created a simplified version of the research and development credit and allowed that to come through. And long story short, these credits are money the government's going to give you back for trying new things that check a couple of key boxes. We can get into those in a sec. But if you're spending money to make your business better, faster, more efficient, improve the outcomes you get for the people you serve, and it's based in technology, that being like biology, computer science, engineering, or physical science, which is like chemistry, then you're probably getting credits and you don't even realize it. And if you don't know, you can't claim them, and then you don't get those back from the government. So that's where they came from, is trying to help American companies compete and innovate. And they've been around a long, long time. They became a permanent part of the tax code in 2015. And since then, they've been a major mainstay. Now, to answer your question, Neil, the reason you've probably been hearing a lot about these is when they did the 2017 tax rewrite, right? There were some changes that happened in there that kicked in 2022. Now, I'll tell you what happened. This is a little behind the scenes. You probably won't hear this anywhere else. But when they were balancing the budget, they were cutting some taxes in 2017. They had to make it up somewhere. Where are we going to get money to come in to balance with the money we're cutting out, right? The tax breaks we are giving. And R&D was one of those places. And so what they said is, we're going to change how the R&D works, but we'll fix it before it kicks in 2022. Well, they never got around to fixing it because this little thing called COVID came along, screwed
Right.
the whole thing up. And then so what it did was it kind of broke. I mean, the credits still existed, but they weren't worth doing. It broke them in 22, 23, and 24. And so nobody had been claiming them the last 3 years. And then with the new bill that just passed in December, I'm sorry, in July, 4th of July, the big,
Yep.
beautiful bill, it fixed those credits and they're giving us 1 year to go back. And people can actually go back and claim the last 3 years and get all
Wow.
those credits at once. So it's a big opportunity for people. And it's part of why all of a sudden it's popped up is because it's like, hey, these are back, but they weren't around for a couple of years. And that's really some of the hubbub.
And these are tax credits, right? Not tax deductions.
Correct. And for those of you who don't know, the difference is if you get, let's say, $100,000 deduction, if you're in a 32% tax bracket, that might be like saving you 32,000 in actual taxes you pay. With a tax credit, if you had a $100,000 tax credit, it's $100,000 you don't pay in taxes. So it's very potent. It's a dollar for dollar reduction in how much you owe in taxes.
Yeah, big difference there.
Wow. That's absolutely wild. And I'm going to jump a little bit into this. I mean, because of the evolution of AI and technology is the only way to stay ahead of the game in certain industries. This is
Sure.
such an opportunity. I mean, that's why Michael brings these opportunities on Rainstorm Radio and now Ryan as well. And Ryan, don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. This is what we do. We have the strategies that people don't know about that can help them in huge ways.
100%.
And these can be, when you say huge ways, right? I mean, these can be quite large for some people. I'm scheduled to talk with a doctor. He's got 6 offices, but over the last 3 years, it could be worth about $550,000 he's going to get back in taxes. It's more typical of someone, we work with a lot of doctors and dentists and construction companies, service businesses, auto shops. For a lot of them, it's more like 15 or $20,000 a year, sometimes 30 if it's a little bigger office. But when you're looking at a 3-year look back, that's some serious money back in your pocket.
Certainly.
So let's continue with how does this apply to business owners now? You talked about the R&D credits, what it means, what can
Mhm.
it be done with, but how does this apply to business owners?
Yeah, so if you're a small business owner, like when you're, to your point, Neil, if you're bringing in AI, if you're trying new software solutions, if you're buying new equipment, and it has to be equipment that's upgraded, right? So you're trying something new as part of the criteria. But a misconception is a lot of people think it needs to be new to the world, like you're inventing some new formula. It
Okay.
just needs to be new to your business. So we work
Wow.
with a lot of dentists. So if you're a dentist and you're bringing in 3D printing, right, where they 3D print teeth,
Hmm.
there's tons of dental offices that do that. But if it's new for your office to print that crown in your office and then put it in someone's mouth, then that would be very, very likely a qualifying expense, right? And the other big thing here, Neil, is it's not just the cost of the equipment. In fact, you get to depreciate the equipment anyway. Where the big dollars are with a lot of these service companies is it's your man hours. You're paying your people wages to realize, hey, we need a better way to do crowns. Let's go research what are all the machines that are out there or the software that does these crowns. Then you go out, you buy the machine, you bring it in, then you have to try it. Oh, we made this crown, it wasn't very good. We need to try different materials. There's this iteration over time to get better and figure it out. All the hours that you're paying yourself as a business owner, you're paying your team, you're paying contractors, all of those dollars that you're spending on labor are where most of the credits come from for a lot of service businesses. If you do develop a product, it could also be like if you're spending a lot of money on materials like alloys or plastics or things because you're trying to get the right formulation or like nutrition products, the materials count too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it can really add up.
No, it can. And my brain is already thinking of different areas that I can look at. Because, for example, my agency was podcasting and social media with a mix of website development at the start of 2025. The end, we're doing SEO, AIO. We're doing all these buying all these new tools to optimize our agency to be even stronger. That's
Mhm.
part of it, isn't it? I didn't think of that if you're getting certain softwares you're purchasing.
Yeah, yeah, and by getting the software and then integrating it into your workflow, and half the time, you know this, Neil, this is why they give you the credits. When you try stuff, it doesn't always work. How many subscriptions have you gotten? Spend all this time with your team, and then it doesn't work, and you're back to square one, and you got to start over, right? All those lost costs are really what they're trying to help you recoup because they don't want you to stop trying new stuff and just say, well, we don't want to screw up, so let's just stay in our lane. They do want you to try new things.
Interesting.
And many
Yeah.
people don't
So
realize that they're already doing this without thinking about it, I'm sure.
that is the big thing, is that people just aren't aware of it. And it's such a, I think you could tell when we're talking about it, it's such a different way to think about taxes, because it's not like a write-off. It really is paying attention to the labor hours. And we have a very simple way where we do a questionnaire with people to help them quickly ascertain what those numbers are. And the government, with the simplified version I mentioned, you don't have to get it down to the penny. You got to get it pretty close. And we've got some simple ways that they allow us to do that. But yeah, people don't know they're doing it, and so they don't claim it, and their CPAs don't understand it, because it's just a little, I don't know, it's like a specialty thing in the
Right.
tax code.
See, what Derek is giving us today is gold, absolute gold. And because I'm already thinking, I was thinking R&D, okay, I'm gonna, implement a lot of AI, different automations, and I have to build something. Really, it's innovation to your business. So that's, especially if you're an innovator that looks to always update your business, it's something definitely, the information is going to be on our website at rainstormmediagroup.com/, and you're going to have an area that in the show notes that we're going to find so you can contact Derek. I'm going to go right here where my question to you is, what is the hourly rate, especially when you're talking about doctors and they're doing research? What is the set rate for like hourly when you're looking at hours and billable and all that stuff when you're looking at how much research was done?
Yeah, so how we do it, our team goes in, and there's a little more to it than this, but I'll keep it really simple. They're going to look at, okay, what are the things that you did to improve the business? Oh, we brought in, like in your case, okay, we brought in a better way to do SEO, right? We've developed that. We've brought in a better way for people to communicate and follow up with clients, these systems, and we take together all the software to make it work. And then the hourly rate, they let us do kind of a weighted average. So there's people who are like the really high paid, like in a doctor's office, the doctor or dentist makes a lot. And then there's their assistants, and then there's the front desk people. And so we kind of look at, okay, we did these 5 things this year. The front desk people, what percentage of their time was that? And then the nurses, what percentage of their time? And the doctors, what percentage of their time? And the business owner, what percentage of their time? And they kind of let us weighted average it to some extent. And then we're able to come up with a formula. And our team's been doing this for about 16 years, so they're very well versed in, like, how does the IRS look at it? Because how they look at it is sort of what matters, and where are their guardrails, and understanding that and making sure we play within the rules that they really accept and understand, and putting it in language they understand, because they really want to see it in a certain format. But the hourly rate changes completely from New York City to Tulsa, Oklahoma. But it's more a matter of, you had $800,000 in wages in your doctor's office this year, right? And we figure 25% of those were spent on this type of activity, figuring things out, making it better, streamlining, etc. So that's $200,000, and then there's a multiplier, and so that might get you $20,000 or something, right, of credits. I'm being really general and broad strokes, but so you kind of get the understanding of a portion of wages, and then there's kind of a portion of that that gets refunded to you.
I get it. And then some other parts of it, if you're buying certain softwares or different things to look at in so many ways. So it really makes it very important. So Ryan, what we're learning today is we're really seeing how it makes it so important for you to really look back a couple of years. That's the shocking part that we heard today, Ryan, is that it's not just 2025. You can start looking back a couple of years. How many years is that? But I want to get Ryan's feedback real quick.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so well, I wanted to touch on that because um because many of these people may be worried, like, okay, well, I don't have the documentation, but it sounds like you have a simple fix to that. How would you help them through that?
Yeah, so we do what we call an interview, where we go through the projects, and we'll kind of look at year by year. We'll ask a series of questions. One of those questions might be like, did you buy any new equipment that was an upgrade? Okay, why'd you buy that? What were you trying to accomplish? Boom, boom, boom. Oh, you brought in new software. Boom, boom, boom. And people can pull out things like their profit and loss and look at, oh, we did buy equipment this year, we did do these things if they need something to jog their memory. But quite often when we're talking to the business owner, especially a smaller business, they're pretty aware of the investments they're making and the changes they've made. So sometimes asking a few questions that we do kind of have on our list jogs those kinds of memories, but it's not too hard to figure it out. So, and like I said, my team does a lot of the technical stuff to make it easy. We really try and make it so that in 30, maybe 45 minutes, all that information gets out. We've got it recorded. Then we match all of those activities up with the tax returns, right? And the wages, and it helps us to get the computations. We even do a free estimate because some people like maybe they didn't do a lot of innovation, but it's a surprising amount who do. And like I said, in the industries we're working in, a lot of these services, and it could be even things like HVAC or electrical or plumbing. You know, we do a lot of that kind of stuff too. There's a lot of stuff that people just don't realize they're doing that's technical, right? They just feel like, hey, we're just trying to compete, but it's in that competition that you innovate, you try new stuff. And as long as you're doing something to improve your business, not just like, hey, I have to do continuing education credits as a doctor, like that's not going to count because it's just like part of your normal business. But when
Right.
you're
Yeah.
consciously trying to improve, you're probably incurring credits.
Yeah. So the big word there is innovative.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
when you're
Yep.
trying to innovate.
And that's what we try to do here at Rainstorm Group and Rainstorm Media is innovate. Uh, what does the average refund look like?
Yeah, so it does range, but I'll just tell you, we work with a lot of businesses that are, let's call it $1 million to $3 million a year of revenue, right? A lot of these single offices, whether it be an auto shop or a construction company or a doctor or dentist, whatever. Um, I would say an easy, and don't hold me to this because every business is different, but like just the state of those businesses, there's new stuff coming out all the time. So a typical year is probably between 1% and 1.5% of revenue. So if they're got $1 million a year revenue, maybe 10 to $15,000. If it's 2 million, it might be 20 to 30. If it's 3 million, it might be 30 to 45, just depending on how heavily they've leaned. Sometimes it is a zero because they just didn't do anything new that year. But for the most part, projects don't just end on December 31st, right? You put something in at Thanksgiving, you're continuing to innovate, that rolls into the next year, you buy something else or you're doing research on that to add something new. So there's overlap. So we find that people who have the mindset where they're continually trying to get better have a tendency to get pretty consistent unless they have like one year that's a really big year. But that's ballpark. So typical people are getting, I'd say 15 to 25,000 a year for our clients.
So tell me, what industries does this present itself to? And what industries have you seen benefit the most from this? I know you mentioned dentists, but are there's other ones that come to mind?
Yeah, so the ones we have a lot of experience, dentists, doctors, auto repair shops, and then like construction industries, home services. But the credits were actually created for manufacturing, Ryan. So, and I've worked with like some garage door companies where they do in-house manufacturing, right? They've made hinges that have aluminum in them so they don't rust so much. They've created different rail systems so that the garage doors go more smoothly. So they're kind of moving into that. So anybody who's doing manufacturing, we've definitely seen it with supplement companies or people who are making their own formulations, like energy drinks. I have a urologist who's got a whole company that he creates all kinds of new products for children and different kinds of things. So yeah, anything where we're creating something new. And then software development is, of course, a total home run. Most software companies, because it's so straight down the middle, a lot of them are already claiming research and development credits. But that is one industry where they're pretty good because a lot of times you're getting funding from the big guys, right? And the big guys know about this stuff. But those are some that I'm very sure qualify, and we've done a handful of those, but our client base has a tendency to be more on the service side.
Okay. So who qualifies?
So the people who qualify are anybody. So some questions you can ask yourself. Have we brought in any upgrades on equipment? Right? If you've done that, you're probably qualifying. Have we developed any custom software or any kind of taken something off the shelf and customized it? Have we put together any new streamlined protocols that are either engineered or using things like AI, right? Where you're creating new protocols to streamline all of your processes. Everything kind of comes down to, Neil, are you looking to improve a product or a process? If you're doing that, it's new to you and it's based in science, you're probably going to qualify for those
This doesn't sound
activities.
like a complex strategy. It sounds fairly simple when you describe it that way.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts, the weeds get a little complicated, but on the high level, it's not a hard thing to grasp. I'm
Yeah.
trying new stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work. The government's willing to give me a little bit of an attaboy for it. We just need to record that in a way that they understand.
Right.
So yeah, we try and keep it easy.
So how easy or hard is it to get these credits?
If you work with a firm, like obviously we do it, I don't know everybody else's process, but I would say for the typical business owner, it probably takes you a total of 2 hours, maybe 15 minutes to do an intro phone call. Just we don't want to waste someone's time if they're not a good fit. Uh, 30 to 45 minutes for that project call, like I said, where we go through everything and document it all. And then however long it takes you to gather your tax returns. In our case, we'll do a free estimate for you. If you say, yeah, that totally makes sense, then we'll have you sign off on the paperwork for us to do it and pay the fees when appropriate. And at that point, we'll do all the work. And then all you've got to do is amend your taxes if we're going backwards, or going forward, you just do this proactively. So it's just part of your tax return. You just don't pay the taxes.
And then what does the average refund look like? Just give some numbers.
Yeah, I would say for our clients, $20,000 to $30,000 a year.
Yeah, and that's a
Right?
year.
Like it
So
is really, really, really common. Some are a little bit smaller than that. A bunch of them are bigger, but that's what I would say is the sweet spot for a lot of the clients we work with. So it's a nice little shot in the arm. Where I come from, that pays for a lot of college or vacations.
yeah, or a part-time employee. That's a whole, yeah, you could take on a whole nother employee right there. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And do you recommend businesses to start to do this innovation, especially with this real big surge in R&D now, for companies to start looking into this for 2026 if they've not done the research yet and want to start to put some of those things in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, generally speaking, and I know Ryan, you and Michael do a lot of stuff with tax strategy, but I think anything you can do to keep tax dollars in your pocket is a huge win. I typically think of taxes as like an additional income stream. If you get good at optimizing your taxes, you just keep a lot more money. And every dollar you keep in taxes, whether it's through R&D or other tax strategies, is the same as a new dollar you earn. But you don't have to have employees, you don't have to take risk, you don't have to do marketing, you don't need insurance for it. It is just straight money to the bottom line. So I think anybody who thinks they might qualify owes it to themselves to spend a few minutes and find out, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You spend an hour and you realize I haven't been missing money. Okay, that's not a huge loss. But if you are missing it, could be 20, 30, 50, $100,000 a year. That's a lot of extra money.
Mhm.
At least that's how I see it.
When your perspective changes from tax to being a burden to being an income stream, that's how you know you have the right CPAs and strategists on your team.
100%. Yeah, we agree with that, and that's one of the things that Michael and I really bonded on, was this idea that people are just getting crushed on taxes. I mean, we routinely save people $100,000 or more a year in taxes that they just didn't even know, because people assume that their tax guy knows everything. And quite frankly, most of the people who do taxes, especially a lot of the CPAs, they didn't even go to school for tax. Like they got their CPA, so they're highly trained. But when you look at that test, only a very small portion is about taxes. Most of it's about financials and auditing and forecasting and a million other things that aren't taxes. So making the assumption that they're doing everything right. Usually, for a lot of people, if your guy's not coming to you, if your tax guy's not coming to you with ideas every year, if they're not proactively meeting with you saying, hey, let me show you ways, or you've got these transactions happening, or this trend is happening in your business. Let me show you how to optimize that. Chances are really good that you have a tax recorder, not a tax strategist or a tax advisor. And a recorder is a totally different thing, right? You bring them your stuff at the end of the year, they tell you what kind of check to write, and that's it. Honestly, I've been tax planning heavily with my clients in September because we need to be able to look at where they're going to end up. And it may take a couple of months to get all the things in place, but they're going to save them hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's making that short meeting with you well worth it just to introduce them.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think it's always worth an exploration. And quite frankly, that's how I found this, right? I heard about it. I called someone up and I said, how does this work? Could this apply to me or my clients? And that short 15-minute call, and here we are years later, and we've done 1,000 plus of these.
All right.
Amazing.
Well, people that are interested, it's going to be in the contact form on the website at rainstormmediagroup.com. We really appreciate it, Derek. Anything else to add, Ryan?
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to Derek for sharing your time and your wisdom. Um, yeah, no, I think this was really great. This is one of the several strategies that we share with people. So that way, as Derek said, you can change your perspective on taxes from being a burden into an income opportunity.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show.